Chapter 7, Text 26. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kashyana. Veda, no, aham, I, samatitani, completely past. Vartamanani, present cha, and Arjuna, O Arjuna, bhavishyami, future cha, also bhutani, all living entities. Mam, me, tu, but Veda knows, na, not, kashyana, anyone. Translation. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. Purport. Here the question of the personality and impersonality is clearly stated. If Krishna, the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, were Maya, material as the impersonalists consider him to be, then like the living entity, he would change his body and forget everything about his past life. Anyone with a material body cannot remember his past life, nor can he foretell his future life, nor can he predict the outcome of his present life. Therefore, he cannot know what is happening in the past, present, and future. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, he cannot know past, present, and future. Unlike the ordinary human being, Lord Krishna clearly says that he completely knows what happened in the past, what is happening in the present, and what will happen in the future. In the fourth chapter, we have seen that Lord Krishna remembers instructing Vivaswan, the sun god, millions of years ago. Krishna knows every living entity because he is situated in every living being's heart as a super soul. But despite his presence in every living entity as a super soul, and his presence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the less intelligent, even if able to realize the impersonal Brahman, cannot realize Sri Krishna as the Supreme Person. Certainly, the transcendental body of Sri Krishna is not perishable. He is just like the sun, and Maya is like a cloud. In the material world, we can see that there is a sun and there are clouds and different stars and planets. The clouds may cover all these in the sky temporarily, but this covering is only apparent to our limited vision. The sun, moon, and stars are not actually covered. Similarly, Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord. By his internal potency, he is not manifest to the less intelligent class of men. As it is stated in the third verse of this chapter, out of millions and millions of men, some try to become perfect in this human form of life, and out of thousands and thousands of such perfected men, hardly one can understand what Lord Krishna is. Even if one is perfected by realization of impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, he cannot possibly understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, without being in Krishna consciousness. Text 27. Ichcha dvesha samuttena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. Ichcha, desire, dvesha, and hate, samuttena, arisen from dvandva of duality, mohena, by the illusion, Bharata, ocean of Bharata, Sarva, all Bhutani, living entities, Sammoham, into delusion, Sarge, while taking birth, Yanti, go, Parantapa, O conqueror of the enemies, O sign of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all the living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arising from desire and hate. Purport. The real constitutional position of the living entity is that of subordination to the Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge, and when is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by the illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Due to the desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees who are not deluded or contaminated by desire and hate can understand that Lord Sri Krishna appears by his internal potencies, but those who are deluded by duality and nescience think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by the material energies. This is their misinformation. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, etc., thinking this is my wife, this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. These are the dualities of delusion. Those who are deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 28. Yesham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dandva mohanir mukta bhajante mam vrata. Yesham, those two, but antagatam, completely eradicated, papam, sin, jananam, of the persons, punya, pious, karmanam, whose previous activities, they, dvandva, of duality, moha, delusion, nirmukta, free from, bhajante, engage in devotional service, mam, to me, vrata, with determination. Translation. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated who completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Purport: those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the dualities of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regulatory principles of religion, who have acted piously, and those who have conquered sinful reactions, can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then gradually they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness, in the association of pure devotees. For in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from the delusion. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 552 that if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. Mahat Sevan Dwaram Ahur Vimukti. But one who associates with materialistic people is on the path leading to the darkest region of existence. Tamo Dwaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. All the devotees of the Lord all the devotees of the Lord traverse this earth just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impulseless do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's laws. Unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality or to be fully engaged in his transcendental loving service with determination. Text 29. Jara marana mokshaya maam ashritya yatanti ye te brahma vidu krishnam adhyatmam karma chakilam. Jara from old age, Marana and death, Mokshaya for the purpose of liberation, Mam me, Ashritya taking shelter of, Yatanti endeavor, ye all those who, they such persons, Brahman, Tat actually that Vidu they know Krishnam, everything, Adhyatmam transcendental karma activities, Cha and Akilam entirely. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death can take refuge in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Purport: birth, death, old age, and diseases affect this material body but not the spiritual body. There is no birth, death, old age, and disease for the spiritual body. So one who attains a spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engages in eternal devotional service. Is really liberated. Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit. It is said that one should understand that he is Brahman, spirit, soul. This Brahman conception of life is also in devotional service as described in this verse. The pure devotees are transcendently situated on the Brahman platform and they know everything on the Brahman about transcendental activities. Four kinds of impure devotees who engage themselves in the transcendental service of the Lord achieve their respective goals, and by the grace of the Supreme Lord, when they are fully Krishna conscious, they actually enjoy spiritual association with the Supreme Lord. But those who are worshippers of demigods never reach the Supreme Lord in a supreme planet. Even the less intelligent Brahman realized persons cannot reach the supreme planet of Krishna, known as Golok Vrindavan. Only persons who perform activities in Krishna consciousness, Pama Ashritya, are actually entitled to be called Brahman because they are actually endeavoring to reach the Krishna planet. Such persons have no misgivings about Krishna and thus they are factually Brahman. Those who are engaged in worshipping the form or archa of the Lord, or who are engaged in meditation on the Lord simply for liberation from material bondage, also know by the grace of the Lord the purports of Brahman, Adibhuta, etc. as explained by the Lord in the next chapter. Text 30. Sadibhuta adidaivam mam sadi yagnam chaye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa sa adibhuta, on the governing principle of the material manifestation. Adidaivam, governing all the demigods. Mam, me. Sa adi yagnam, and governing all sacrifices. Cha, also. Ye, those who vidu know prayana of death, kale at that time, api even cha, and mam, me. Te vidu know yukta chetasa, their minds engage in me. Translation: those who in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods of all the methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path of entirely understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of the in the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is governing principle of the material manifestation and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And at the time of death, such a Krishna conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord Goloka Vrindavan. This 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is the association of persons who are Krishna conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord, and by His grace one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness in good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter: the man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and diseases, and the worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dhradavrata, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the substance of that conviction. Thus ends the Bhakti and the purpose of the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the knowledge of the Absolute.